Well, hello once more. Yes, that's another day. So far, I've only missed one. I'm quite proud of that. Today I'm going to talk about the masks that we wear from a mental health sufferer's point of view, specifically anxiety and depression, because, again, those are the grounds where I've got the greater knowledge. Greatest knowledge, not greater knowledge, implying that mine is better than anyone else's. It's just where my knowledge lies on the subject. Shut up. Stop talking bollocks and say something important, would you? Okay, right. Sorry, I had to take the fun away from my editor on that one. But there was a prime example of it. People like me, anxiety sufferers and depression sufferers, we put on brave faces. We make jokes, we laugh and make fun of ourselves and the world and everything else because we don't really want what's going on inside to be known. I've mentioned before that the most depressed people are often in public the most cheerful, and that is the case because they don't want people to know how they're feeling. They don't want anyone else to feel that way, and that's when the jokes start happening. Personally, if you hang around me for any length of time, you will know that I make some of the most self-deprecating jokes there are around. I dig right into myself because it gets a laugh and deflects away from actually letting people know how I feel. I'll make jokes about being stupid and incapable of performing certain tasks because I don't want people to know that I'm actually despairing and close to tears a lot of the time. Again, the case I've brought up before is Robin Williams. A tragic story of just what can happen when depression, among other things, get too much. And to have looked at him and his career, you wouldn't have known that he felt that way. Jim Carrey as well. And Ryan Reynolds recently came out and said that the reason for his personality is because of his constant fight with anxiety, which anyone who's ever suffered from anxiety probably saw that coming, because that is exactly what we do. We use humour and deflection so that for a while we can pretend that we don't feel these ways, or at least in my case personally, it's so for a while I can pretend that I don't feel this way. And yet, under the surface, everybody who hangs out with me on a regular basis, some of you may have seen that brave face slip from time to time, but for the most part, you'll know that I am always laughing and joking and doing silly, fun little things. And I'm going to admit to you here that while those jokes are genuinely true, they genuinely make me happy, and while that is who I am in one way, for the most part, when I am making those jokes, I am riddled with anxiety. I am often feeling so distressed that I actually could be on the verge of tears at any point. And sometimes it's just those jokes, just that brave face, the need to keep that up, that stops it happening. Problem is that these masks, these brave faces, are very, very loose-fitting, and they're very, very fragile. Sometimes they can fall off with no warning at all, and it's very difficult to catch it before it hits the ground, and it does break when that happens. And I tell you, those masks take a long time to make. It's very delicate, fragile work to take what you're feeling, truly feeling, and put that mask on it and be happy and cheerful, and the slightest knock to it can destroy it completely. And then you've got to spend all that time making a new brave face to put on around people. See, right now, just talking about it is making it feel very loose, and it is very difficult to talk about at the moment because I don't want to break it. I want to be that cheerful, happy person that people see, that some people think I actually am because of that brave face, that mask. But this is a time of awareness, and I don't want to whitewash the situation. I want to be honest and true, at least briefly, so that people can see just how fragile these brave faces can be, because it's not always big things coming along that can get to you and affect that brave face. Sometimes it's lots of small things, and just one last small thing can break it. And sometimes that small thing is remembering something that happened a long time ago. Remembering things that you really don't want to think about, that have affected you and shaped the course of your whole life into something that means you need to wear that brave face. Me, personally, I didn't have a great childhood. My mum, it was obvious from a very young age that she loved drugs and alcohol more than she loved me. And I make jokes about it. I pretend that I've come to terms with that I've made my peace with it. But when I think that I could have had a full family if she hadn't been like that, she wouldn't have been the terrible person that she was. And she was, because she was always hungering for that next fix, that next drink. And she would tread on anyone to get it, and that included her own kids. I ended up living with my dad from a very young age, and I know they say that any memories before the age of about 4 are false memories, but I still remember times that I spent there, that I lived with her before that age, and that they were not pleasant times. She was almost always drunk or high on something, and if she wasn't one of those two things, she was a monster to be around because she was craving them. But yeah, I ended up living with my dad from a very young age, and he did a wonderful job raising me. He was both parents to me. He left his job and went self-employed so he could spend more time with me. He went without so much so that I could have as good a life as possible. But even then, he would always give me the option to visit my mum, and I felt an obligation to keep that up. So every 2 weeks we would go and visit her and see how it was going. And of course, every time we were there, she was always either drunk or high or craving something. So it was not a pleasant visit. She also had another, she'd met someone else. She had another family at this point. And every time I went there, I just felt no love from her. In fact, on the very few occasions that I did get a hug before I left, it was just a cursory. It was a chore. It was something she did because she had to, because it was expected. It was a brief arms round, squeeze, gone. That was it. There was no actual love in that. And there was one time that we couldn't go and visit. My dad was busy. We couldn't go and visit her, so he sent her the money to catch the train down to come and see us. And we didn't see her. We didn't hear back from her. Nothing. We went to visit again a couple of weeks after that, and she thanked him for the beer money. Yeah. We sent her some money so that she could come and visit her son, a letter with it, so that she knew what it was for, so that she could come and visit me, and she used it to get drunk. What's that going to do for your self-worth at that age, when your mum would rather be drunk than make the effort to come down and visit you? No, it's... Sorry, I am okay. I always pretend that I'm over this, and it's always to the point that I think I actually am, and then I start thinking about it, and it's always as raw as it has been. And this isn't the only example of what messed me up from childhood. I was bullied at school for being different, and boy was I different. Didn't have any friends growing up, or didn't have any real friends growing up. You know, a few people I hung out with occasionally, and then it turned out they were stealing from me. And my first relationship, who was someone else I met at school, ended very, very messily, and it has affected my ability to get into relationships to this day. The very short version of it, the quick and ugly version of that story is that when I was at school, I was deep in the closet, or so I thought, and there was another boy who had noticed me and clearly had some sort of intuition that I didn't have. And he started talking to me when we were relatively secluded one day, and said that he liked me and that he'd like me to come round to his place and spend some time with him. And it turns out that he liked boys as well, and we ended up in a relationship together. And he had rules about the relationship that we were not to tell anyone, that I was not to speak about it, that at school we were to act like we didn't know each other or barely knew each other. Basically, it was keep it entirely secret, because he didn't want anyone knowing that he was into other guys. And I did all these things because he was the first person who'd ever got close to me in that way, and I'd ever got close to in that way. And at the time, it was what I thought love to be, because I was able to let myself vulnerable with him. And then one day he turned up at my place, which was rare on its own. We usually would have to meet up at his when his parents weren't there. And he said that we needed to talk, which everyone I'm sure knows is the death knell for a relationship. And basically he just said that we had to break up because he felt like people were getting suspicious. He thought we'd been too active together, been doing too much together, and he thought people were getting suspicious of us. And I agreed. And I also agreed that I wouldn't tell anyone that we had ever been together. And I know I'm telling this story now, but it's anonymized. No one knows. No one knows who he is, and I won't say so. But then very shortly after we broke up, I saw him out and about, holding hands with his new boyfriend. I could have gone up and confronted him. I could have made a whole big scene, but I didn't. I'm sorry, I actually don't know how I'm holding this together right now. But that's another thing that comes into my head from time to time, and as I say, it has affected my ability to get into relationships. I literally can't make the first move anymore, because I don't want to feel that pain again. I don't want to feel the hurt of being the one to start something that could end like that again. Sorry. Sorry about that. This is why I need the brave face. Because I don't want anyone seeing me like this. I know, yes, okay, I know the irony of putting this up on YouTube when I don't want anyone seeing me like it is so heavy that you can practically feel it yourself. But I just mean, like, in person, I don't want anyone knowing that this could be just under the surface. Okay, right, I'm okay now. See? Brave face is still intact. I took the mask off briefly there. Didn't break it. We're all good. But that is why we wear the brave faces. I mean, would you want to see someone like that when you can see them happy and joking? Well, I hope you weren't expecting a too happy ending to tonight's video. But all I can say is, if you're ever around me and the brave face slips and you have to see that, then I apologise. Because I don't want you seeing me like that. I don't want you being subjected to someone in that state. See you tomorrow, guys.